Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Hodgins. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Asylon Robotics. I'm here today with Brent McLaughlin. He's our co-founder and Chief Operating Officer, and also leading a lot of our UAS regulatory efforts here at the company. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to Brent to give a little bit of an introduction here.
Hi, thanks, Ryan. So as Ryan mentioned, I'm Brent, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder for Asylon. Came from MIT. That's where I met Adam and Damon, the other co-founders of Asylon. From there, I went to the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. Worked on ballistic missile defense for the U.S. Navy international programs with some of our international partners like Japan, some of our European allies, and then jumped ship to help found Asylon back in 2015, 2016. Really kind of at the height of all the drone craziness at the time, and I've been here ever since. Been a blast.
So, can you kind of kick things off? What is beyond visual line of sight, and what does it exactly mean to have a waiver for it?
Sure. I think anytime you start a conversation about drones, BVLOS or this beyond visual line of sight term inevitably just comes up. And it's because it's really the holy grail of our industry. Today, uh, drones are operated commercially under what's called Part 107. It's an FAA regulatory rule that regulates how these commercial drones can be operated today. And one of the stipulations of that Part 107 rule requires an operator to be on site with what they call a visual line of sight, basically with their own eyeballs, not with a camera, not with binoculars, nothing else, but with their own eyeballs, able to see the drone and the airspace around it to ensure the safety of the operation. They're mainly concerned about other manned aircraft coming in, think low-flying planes or helicopters coming into the airspace and being interfered with via a drone that doesn't have someone on board to see what's going on. So BV loss is this idea that you can remove that on-site presence, that on-site visual observer, that on-site pilot, and put them somewhere else. Put them remotely so they can remotely operate this BV loss beyond visual line of sight and not be standing there with eyes on the drone, eyes on the airspace that whole time. So that's really where BVLOS comes from. How you achieve BVLOS today is really through a process that the FAA has defined through waivers. The Part 107 regulations have a number of paragraphs really that you can apply for a waiver to show the FAA, hey, I would like to be able to operate beyond the restrictions set forth in the very generic Part 107 rule. And that visual line of sight paragraph really is one of those conditions that can be waived. So going to the FAA and applying for a waiver is a non-trivial process, especially for BV losses. It's one of the harder ones to achieve a waiver for. But you're basically going to them and proving that you can do what you want to do. You can prove that your operation can be conducted safely, and that's really what the FAA cares about most is the safety of the operation. It's not going to impact other people. It's not going to hurt or injure anyone or kill anyone, and it's not going to hurt or damage any other assets. And that's what their primary concern is. So they do allow waivers for certain things, but it's a non-trivial process for sure.
Perfect. And so it's important to one talk about the applications of drone technology in a commercial space, but when it's also important to talk about when you can't as well. So when exactly per FAA regulations can't you operate a drone without a particular waiver?
Sure. So I think we as a country have kind of come together around this. I think education is getting better and better. But today you can go to any of these big box stores and pick up a drone, and you can go outside and fly that drone. And what you may not realize if you're not kind of from the aviation industry or have that sort of background is that as soon as that drone is off the ground, it's now under the purview of the FAA. They have authority over how that is operated. So if you are using a drone for any sort of commercial application, and that term is very loosely applied here. If you're not part of an RC Recreational Flyers Club, like if you don't know what that means, then you're not part of that. Is basically the general rule that you should apply. That you're basically going to fall under a Part 107 application for that. So I think the first real constraint that limits when drones can fly is you need a Part 107 licensed operator. You need someone that's gone through the process with the FAA to get an FAA license. It's not too arduous, but it is a little difficult. You have to prove understanding of a variety of FAA processes, airspace, understand where and when you can fly. So you go through this, you have to take a formal test and pass all of that, and that's how you get kind of this Part 107 license. That's definitely the first restriction that comes to mind. Other than that, we've already mentioned this BVLOS or the VLOS, the visual line of sight requirement. Today under Part 107, you have to be standing there, eyes on the drone, eyes on the airspace while you're flying the drone. You can't, set your drone outside and like run inside and fly the drone from your kitchen. That technically today that's illegal under Part 107, so you can't do that. And then Part 107 also includes some other rules, visibility requirements. You have to be able to see, via FAA aviation weather resources or sources know that the visibility is up to 3 statute miles. The clouds are a certain height, and you're able to maintain separation between the clouds and your drone. So definitely a lot of nuances associated with that, and that's why they require the Part 107 license, is to be able to ensure that you're able to comply with those sorts of requirements.
Perfect. And so, with that being said, what exactly is an automated security drone system here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think what really sets it apart, if you're familiar again at all with these types of drones you can get from these big box stores, you can walk out and throw a battery in and fly it, and it's a ton of fun. But you're very hands-on. You have a controller in your hand, you're flying it with sticks, maybe an app on your phone, but you're still standing there. You're the one swapping the power out. You're the one managing the data, and I think that's the main difference here is that the automated security drone systems automate all of that. They come with some sort of power exchange system, whether it's a recharge or a battery swap system. They have ability to upload video data to the cloud or allow remote observers to view that video. That's an application that we see, especially on the security side. Like you want your officers in the field or your security personnel in the field and at your remote operations or central command center to be able to see the same video at the same time, preferably in real time live, right? So these automated systems automate all of that and kind of enable that advanced operation.
And so, why does BVLOS ultimately matter for security teams?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the purpose of those. The purpose of these automated security drone systems is really to augment existing physical security postures. They can come in, they can supplement your manned guard team, they can supplement your sensors and other data capture devices that you have on site. But with all the restrictions of Part 107, you have to have someone there on site, and the barrier to entry for that person, the qualifications that they have is typically much higher than what you would get for, perhaps other personnel that you have on your security team. So if that person is sick or isn't able to come to work that day, you're now down. You can't operate that system. But if you have BVLOS, it allows you to get more efficient in your operations. It allows you to remotely command and control everything from a central command center. That's something that we're chasing at Asylon, is being able to enable this remote operations center to command and control all of these drones across the country and take advantage of the efficiencies of that. Have one operator that can operate many systems around the country. Just makes the whole process a lot easier and logistically simpler. So I think that's really where it comes, is being able to take advantage of the true efficiencies of the system and enabling these BVLOS operations.
And so you mentioned it earlier, but BVLOS is kind of the holy grail of just the drone industry, just as a whole. But how truly rare are these waivers, and why exactly are they so difficult to get?
Yeah, Part 107 BVLOS waivers are pretty rare, and as I'm about to tell you, pretty difficult to get as well. Today, there's been about just over 100 BVLOS waivers that have been awarded in the United States, going all the way back to 2018. So over the past 4-ish years, only a little over 100 of those. Asylon actually owns 3 of those. We've had 3 of those, around 100 waivers approved. So it's a small club that understand how to get these and are even chasing BVLOS waivers. I think the hardest part to getting those is again proving to the FAA that what you're wanting to do, you can do so safely without someone standing there on site to observe the operation. And I think, at least for us, the first waiver was the hardest. We spent the better part of a year kind of generating all the documentation, improving and creating the training modules that we needed to ensure that our staff and operations personnel were prepared to operate in this way, in this fashion. And then also improving and creating, again, our own processes and procedures and our techniques and tactics for a variety of situations. Everything's easy when everything works. But what happens when it doesn't, and how do you respond, and how do you do so safely and mitigate as many of those risks as you can? And a lot of that work went into that first waiver, and then from there, at least we've seen that the process gets easier. I think the FAA started to get to know us, not just personally, but also our company and our operations, our aircraft, and our con ops. What we're trying to do. They're starting to understand this. I think when Part 107 was created, what we're doing today is automated security drone system. That was not even on the horizon for what they thought drones would be used for. This idea that you would have a central command center with a variety of different pilots sitting there and operating drones across the country. I don't think it doesn't seem like that was really on the horizon for them whenever they're kind of drafting this rule. So there's been a lot of education from us on this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and I think that we're starting to see the light bulb come on with some of the people that we're interacting with at the FAA and understanding the value of what we're doing and the ability that we can do that safely.
Perfect, thanks. And so you mentioned that we've recently gotten a few different waivers just over the last couple of months here. And I know it wasn't just the award, but there was a lot of thought and development that went into the overall process there. Can you describe just three general things for me? What are the general details of those waivers that we've received? What's the uniqueness of them as well? And how does this ultimately change the perimeter security industry?
Yeah, I think for us, we're marching towards that holy grail of true, fully remote BVLOS operations, and trying to tackle that in the very first waiver we saw as a non-winning strategy. So we developed this waiver plan. It's kind of a tiered approach. So the first waiver that we put together and submitted and got approved, again, that was our longest lead waiver, was simple from a BVLOS perspective of we want to take what the FAA calls the remote piloting command, the RPIC, and that's the person that they basically point their finger to the chest and say you are responsible for the safety of this operation. Basically take that term, that title, and give it not to the pilot on site, but to the remote security operations center analyst sitting at our headquarters in Philly. Make them the RPIC. That's all that first waiver did. That's it, and that was definitely the hardest to get through. But once that was approved, that really laid the foundation for everything that we're chasing. It allows us to put and build more and more on top of that. So our second waiver, which is pretty complex, was basically take that. So the RSOC, this analyst, remote analyst, is now the RPIC, but allow them to do operations over people, basically fly the drone over people, over moving vehicles, and at night. And a lot of those, all of those actually are restrictions as under Part 107. You can't typically do that, especially BVLOS. So we threw that in. We got that approved. That was one of about 5 waivers of that complexity for those specific things that have ever been approved. So it's a pretty exclusive club. Again, very difficult to get. Not only is that reliant on your operations procedures and the qualifications of your team, but it requires a lot of mitigations on the technology and on the aircraft and the systems surrounding the aircraft and how that responds to different abnormal scenarios. So that was the second waiver that we got. And then the third one, again, building on the progress of the second one, take all those things. So RSOC, that remote analyst is the RPIC, operations at night over people moving vehicles within controlled airspace. So actually within Class Bravo, Class B airspace, within a few miles of an airport, and be able to get that approval to do those BVLOS operations. So each of those successively more difficult and more rare. With the award of that third waiver, we were actually the first company to get 2 waivers of that complexity awarded. But I think it's really great because it's showing the repeatability and the scalability of this process. I think I'm confident, as far as we know, we're the first company in the security space to get these types of waivers. So it's been great to kind of see that progress. First company to get 2 of these types of waivers, and then in the Class Bravo airspace as well. So I was pretty excited about all of those.
Well, that's all the questions I have for us today. If you want to learn more and get in touch with us, just reach out to us via asylonrobotics.com. Brent, thank you very much for sharing your expertise here, and I'm sure we'll be chatting more in the future here.
Okay, thanks.